Welcome everybody to another incredible episode of BAM. That's our big agent meeting. I'm your host for today. I'm none other than Tony King. I have the pleasure of being Vice President of U.S. Growth here. And oh my gosh, we are going to knock your socks off today. We shook up the world just like Cassius Clay, man. We're in the building. We got so many exciting things. We broke the internet the other day when we made these big announcements, but we are going to talk a lot about a lot of that stuff here today. Just to recap some of it for you, in case you didn't get a chance to get up to Canada, or you've had your head under a rock and haven't been checking out social media, we are going to catch you up on everything you need to know about what's going on here at eXp and the big announcements that came out this week. Before we get into that, and first and foremost, I've got my brother Ian Wheatley from KGCI. He is going to be checking in with us, giving us some updates on what's happening on that side of the house. Ian, what you got, brother?
Hey, thanks for checking into the Big Agent Meeting, streaming right here on KGCI Real Estate on Air. Welcome to the second quarter. And how'd Q1 look compared to your business plan you have on paper? Oh, you don't have a business plan. Well, this is awkward. Okay. Let's see if I can help you fix that. Coming up after the Big Agent Meeting right here on KGCI Real Estate on Air, we are going to be kicking off our weekly Friday focus. And what's the focus this week? It's all about creating a bulletproof business plan. We will have 6 hours with some of the best real estate coaches on the planet, including Lars Hedenborg, John Kitchens, Gogo Bethke, Stuart Hislop, Jessica Nieto, Julie Nelson, and many others. And if you already have a business plan, you're in an even better position, because everything we're talking about today is all about taking the business from where it's at right now and ramping it up to the next level. It all kicks off with a replay of Tuesday's Real Estate on Air Live, where I got to sit down with Coach Randy Bird, where we talked about the activities, the planning, the execution, and the structure required in a modern real estate business plan. I'm sure that there are some agents out there that are having the best quarter they ever had, but if you are not among them and you want to do better, today's Friday Focus is a can't miss. And so be sure to scan the QR code, subscribe to KGCI wherever you're listening to podcasts, because we'll be podcasting all the episodes we air today on the Friday Focus. And you don't want to miss out on the real estate business building strategies and tactics that you will only find right here on KGCI Real Estate on Air.
Thank you so much, brother. That was incredible. Thank you so much, Ian. One more thing, as we're talking about these exciting announcements, these exciting updates, if you haven't heard, we have something called the Explorer Room that we just opened up, and it has been absolutely incredible. We have been changing agents' lives, changing agents' businesses. Our growth team is standing by from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. every single business day, standing by to help you close your prospects that are having questions about eXp that maybe you don't know the answer to, or that you need some help from the staff, from the executive team. You want to get some answers and help that person get off the fence. We are here to be your closing partner. We're here to be your third-party resource. So check out this short video and the short testimonial from one of our recent explorers in the Explorer Room. Check this out. If you get someone to eXpCon on an Explorer Pass, get them to visit with us in the Explorer Lounge at eXpCon, that person is almost 70% likely to join eXp. But guess what? We are now taking that whole experience virtually with the brand new ExplorerRoom.com. So if you have a prospect that is curious about eXp, send them to ExplorerRoom.com. One of our growth leaders will be there waiting live on Zoom to have a conference call with your prospect, or ideally with you and your prospect on a 3-way call, to help chat with your prospect about joining eXp. Now, the Explorer Room is going to be open from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And our growth leaders are standing by to chat with your prospects. No waiting, no scheduling, just instant help, instant access to the growth team, instant access to the growth leaders, and instant help for your prospect to make that decision to join eXp. Try it today at ExplorerRoom.com. See you there.
I have an Explorer Room success story. So on Monday, Danny Burgess, one of my leaders out of San Francisco, he was like, hey, I've got this, amazing $50 million producer. We've got questions. She needs a cap deferment. I sent him into the Explorer Room. 10 minutes later, so cool. I'm on. Wow. What a cool experience. We got the cap deferred and she's moving over.
That's great. I love that.
Yes. Thank you so much for doing that. It's amazing.
I have none other than the one and only, the incredible, incredulous, the outstanding and amazing Holly Money Mayberry. She's got another announcement coming in for us from the broker's operations and our operations team. Holly, what you got?
Well, hey, everybody. I am so excited to be here as always, because getting you the latest of what is happening is so important to keep you in business and keep you building going forward. Well, like all weeks, it's been pretty busy, and there have been some big announcements that are definitely impacting kind of across the market. So rather than just, give you nuance, I want to give you some details that you can go use with your clients this afternoon. And so getting right into it, tariffs, interest rates, and purchase power. Immediately, we saw the administration announce tariffs across the board. So what does that mean for you and I? Well, we did see reaction to mortgage interest rates, and they dropped a little bit. It's the lowest so far this year, which is positive, but it's probably not going to last very long. Now, this is what's been interesting in looking at the home builders as well as the budget lab out of Yale University. Yale actually came out and said, hey, purchase power is impacted due to the tariffs about another $2,100 per household. Now, the recent tariffs, this is before this week, the ones that were announced back in March, that looked to add about $9,200 on the cost of building each new home. So what does that mean for you and I? Well, a couple of things as we kind of get into the sauce. Mortgage rate relief, Fannie Mae and the mortgage brokers said, yeah, we were already headed that way. And we thought we would see easing just because of some slowing of the economy. Again, the Fed is watching the rates very closely. They didn't make any moves back in March, but they're indicating maybe towards the end of the year. This is what's interesting, though. Buyers are getting a bit more optimistic. They're watching the interest rates very closely. Like our February foot traffic, that was actually up. We saw a few more pendings. We're seeing market increase as far as properties on the market or availability. So with that inventory rise and rate relief, you and I having these conversations with our clients, it's really, really important that we cut through all of the headlines. They're flashy, they grab you, they probably draw some different emotions depending on who you're working with. And so it's really important that you and I stay steady as we go and really look at what's happening locally, but also right in front of us with our clients. This was a trend that I thought was really interesting, and this was just released by the National Association of Realtors. And it's some of the stuff you're already seeing because of the offers that you're writing or the contracts you're negotiating with your sellers. Boomers continue to be the highest group of buyers right now at 42%, and 51% of all buyers right now are coming out of the boomers with cash. That's really interesting when you start to look at our first-time home buyers, our younger millennials. They're making up about 71% of buyers right now, or the first-time home buyers, I should say. So as a result, if I'm going out to take a listing right now, I'm going to be looking at who our potential buyer is. Who are we most likely to appeal to? Is this a first-time home buyer? Are we looking at FHA or VA? What kind of condition does the property need to be in? But then I'm also looking at, hey, where are my feeder markets? I'm out in Arizona, and I'm always watching where my feeder markets are. I have a lot of pre-retirees, folks that are maybe on that younger boomer trend that are starting to buy their retirement home, and they're really excited about it, and they're paying cash. So that bodes really well. What does that look like? If I've got a seller that I'm taking a listing with this afternoon, I'm talking to them through all of those things and what's going on locally, as well as what we're seeing nationally. And then finally, this is something that I found really interesting, maybe because I'm Gen X, but multi-generational homes is continuing to increase, with Gen X being that sandwich generation. We're taking care of our parents, we're taking care of our kids. And so we're looking for maybe homes that allow for that in-law setup or a casita, or maybe multifamily, as far as maybe I've got my parents on the main level and I've got my kids in the basement and I'm living in the attic. Like all of those types of things as you start to go forward. Why this matters. When you start to work with people, whatever market you're in, look at where they're coming from. Are they staying local? Are they downsizing? Are they upsizing? Getting bigger? Those types of things. Now, the other key and what's going on in our markets that I found really interesting is commercial. And commercial really lends itself to like where we're going in the broader economy. The last few years in commercial have been rough, just to be honest. And so these were some things that really stood out to me. We are starting to see commercial come back. That multifamily, the absorption, I found this interesting looking across these top 10 states or cities with the highest multifamily absorption. Well, guys, these also were some of the top areas that people were migrating to. Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin, Texas, Atlanta, Georgia, Phoenix, Arizona. Those should all sound a little bit familiar as we look at where people were looking to move earlier this year. Now, office properties, they're a little on the negative, but what's interesting is move-outs have dropped over a third. So February looked really good. People are not moving out of office spaces like they were. Hospitality, hotels, that's remaining strong. But retail, very, very interesting because it's the lowest vacancy rate, and we're actually seeing rents increase marginally, 1.9%. But that bodes really well. So when you look at the overall economy, things to be aware of, what's going on in multifamily, because that's going to drive our future homeowners. Where are those new construction of apartment complexes being built? And what's the price range of those apartment complexes? We're seeing a lot in my area that are $1,000, $1,200, $1,500 a month. Now, I know some of you back east are like, wow, that's a steal. Totally get it. But in my market, like, holy cow, that's a lot of money. So when you start to look at who you're working with, I want you to think about how you take care of the client in front of you. I've thrown a lot of national headlines at you. What's important is the client in front of you and focusing on their needs. What I'm finding is some of these clients, they're really nervous. They're maybe scraping together cash. Maybe they're worried about student loans. They've got medical bills, focusing on their needs and what it means. But that also looks at rate shopping. See, with rates dropping down yesterday, that creates a little bit of a frenzy, but how long will it be down? It depends. And so it's really important how you work with your local lender. You stay in connection. And as you're working with buyers to find the right property, you're checking rates. If they are really, really tight on what their affordability factor is, great. Have those conversations. What does it look like if rates jump up a little bit or jump down? Maybe you negotiate concessions and how that works with a rate buy down. All of these things that you've had in your toolbox, be bringing them all out, setting everybody up for success. And finally, keep it local. Everybody's going to talk national headlines right now. The more local you can make it. So take a national headline and talk about what's happening in your town, your neighborhood, your zip code, heck, even on your street. That kind of information is going to drive value in how you connect with your clients. And this is what I'll also say. Video is your friend. Be talking about this on your social media. Educate people on what it looks like to buy right now. And this is my favorite thing. Fourth tip, be agile. We hear it all the time here at eXp. Please be agile, but be agile in your negotiating. Be thoughtful about what's going on in these market shifts, because as you think of what's going on, if I'm a buyer's agent, I'm looking at, hey, is the seller selling on price or on time? Because that's going to impact how I negotiate and how I make or present my offer. Sellers, I want you to focus on your net sheet, because sometimes buyers will need to get there different ways. They may offer full price, but they're asking for a bunch of concessions, whereas somebody who offered much less because they were cash and no concessions, what's the net? At the end of the day, what goes into your pocket and it allows to move your family forward. These strategies are going to help you as you go through this market. The next 90 days, we're going to take one day at a time together. And so keep joining us here every Friday as we help build your business on the Big Agent Meeting. I love being with you, and I'll see you guys very soon.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much, Holly. Now, the moment that you've all been waiting for. Can we get a drum roll? Can we get a drum roll? Do we have any like B-roll or anything we could drop in here, or like sound effects? We need a drum roll. This is what the world has been waiting for. Again, if you've had your head under a rock, you haven't heard about this. Everybody else already knows. My phone has been blowing up. My email's been blowing up. Everything has been blowing up all over about this new program that we just rolled out. I have my brother Russ Rockin', Russ Laggin, and Kelton Cloverdale. They are going to come and tell us about this new program. Russ, take it away.
Good morning and welcome to Big Agent Meeting Update of the Week. You guys get to see me in a little bit of a different role here, rolling out something new. And I've got along with me one of my favorite people at eXp. I never really knew who she was until I got to work with her on this project. And if you don't know Kelton Coverdale, she is an absolute dynamo working in the operations side. She's been an amazing person to work with. Kelton, welcome to Big Agent Meeting.
Thank you for having me.
You know what? We've got something interesting you and I have been working on. This seems like we've been working on this for a little while. And here's the most amazing part. On Wednesday this week in Montreal, rolled out eXp. Glenn Sanford announced that eXp now will have co-sponsorship at eXp. Isn't that amazing?
Amazing.
It's one of those things we kind of sit down and we talk about, some other people do other things. And there's so many things in this business that everybody has copied off of eXp. Every once in a while, somebody else does something. We think, you know what? We'd like to put that in our business too. So thank others for giving us the idea to put this into our business also. And we can bring this in. And here's the fun part. Some of the other companies are doing this and they do it where they actually divide revenue share when they do co-sponsorship. And at eXp, it's kind of like co-sponsorship plus, because we don't divide it, we actually multiply it. So instead of people getting paid half or less than half when they do a co-sponsor deal, each person involved, the sponsor and the co-sponsor, get paid full rev share. And that's just like a 2.0 way of doing anything. Always eXp doing things at the next level. What do you think about that one?
I'm loving it. I think everyone else is going to love it too.
Very good. So let me give you a quick overview of what's going on. So starting April 2nd, which is a couple of days ago in Montreal, we announced co-sponsorship is going to be available at eXp. Here's a couple pieces of information that you need to know. First off, this thing is going live on May 1. So if you're watching this today and you're saying, but Russ, it's not May 1 yet. Well, don't worry, we've got a provision for you guys to be able to actually bring somebody in. Last thing we want to do is hold you back from bringing somebody in if this is a program that would work for them. So let me go over a couple of things that I came up with of uses for this program. So Kelton, check this out. Like if you're doing something and you want to bring somebody into the company, but you're not really good at helping people sell more homes, instead of you trying to struggle through it and figure it out, this is a perfect use for co-sponsorship. You're able to now partner up with somebody that can help that person take their business to the next level. So let me give you an example. We've got Steve right here. Steve would be the sponsee, the person that's not with eXp yet. They've been friends with Marvin for the whole life, right? But Marvin's not really good at teaching, training, coaching people on how to sell houses. So what Marvin says is like, hey, if you need somebody to help you with that, Steve says, well, I would love to do business with Olive because Olive is doing business exactly the way I want to do business. So now in this scenario, you can name Marvin as a sponsor, Olive as a co-sponsor, and Steve here gets the benefit of both worlds. So in that one, Steve gets to sell more houses because he's got two people helping him move his business forward. What do you think about that one?
I think that's a win for everyone.
Simple one way to go, right? The next one up is more attraction, connect, collaboration. So Kelton, let's say you want to do some rev share building in your company. Why not? You're here anyway. You're selling a bunch of houses, but you want to bring that into your business, but you don't really know exactly how to do it, but you know a ton of people. In this scenario, you could set up a scenario where you could actually collaborate with somebody that has a lot of experience doing the recruiting. And you have the ability to say, hey, I'm going to get the people warmed up. I'm going to hand them over to you, Russ. You put them in the bucket and now we can both win because we can co-sponsor with them. That's another use that I think I love in here. And then the third one here, specialized skills. There are certain people that have certain skills that are really amazing in this business, and you would have the ability to partner with people with certain skills. So Kelton, let's just say you're amazing with social media. Me, I'm okay with it, but you're amazing with it. In that scenario, or in this scenario, you're able to actually partner up with somebody that has specialized skills. You've got people with social media skills, people that are brokerage experts and know how to talk to brokerages, people that have YouTube skills, people that have systems and parts and pieces and processes, which kicks me over to the next one, which is people that have accountability. Like, I'm doing sales, man. Like, I don't have time to chase Kelton around all the time. So if you and I partner, you could actually have a scenario where the one person co-sponsor is better at accountability, bring them into your business. Now you have the ability to work together to make sure Steve is most successful. And of course, the last three are really great. Somebody that has systems that you don't have, you could collaborate with them with systems. If somebody is in a local market. So Kelton, where are you in the world?
I'm in Wilmington, North Carolina.
Wilmington, North Carolina. You know what? I don't know a whole lot about Wilmington, North Carolina real estate. I could probably figure it out, but I'm not going to be the best person to guide somebody in Wilmington. So if I've got somebody that's in Wilmington, I say, hey, Kelton, I've got somebody in Wilmington. You've got an office in Wilmington. why don't we collaborate with these guys? We'll co-sponsor. You can help take care of their stuff on the ground. You know, the local market, and it gets the ability to have Steve the support he needs on a local market. And then, of course, for some of you guys, you just want the freedom. I just want to bring people in, and I want to make sure they're getting taken care of by somebody else. And there's people that love to do that nurture, and there's people like to do that front end, and then let somebody else do that nurture. So co-sponsor now has the ability to have a whole bunch of different scenarios where you, as you go out, if you don't have the whole skill set to be able to take care of everything, you can now collaborate with other people across the board. What do you think about that?
And it's incredibly dynamic. And I think that we're going to see a lot of good stuff come out of this. And there's lots of ways to leverage we haven't even imagined yet. So I'm excited to see how this thing grows.
Absolutely fantastic. So Kelton, one of the things that we've been working on is making sure we're dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's. So with that said, we have put together an eXp toolkit for co-sponsorship. So with the eXp co-sponsor toolkit, we have the ability to, number one, know when is this thing starting, right? First off, when is this thing starting? Starts on May 1. And then as we go into here, Kelton, check this out, co-sponsorship explained. We've got 2 different videos in here. One is kind of a line drawing version that gives you a simple overview of what the co-sponsor program is in detail. And the second one, you may recognize the guy on the right there. I end up doodling on this whiteboard quite a bit. That is a video of me talking through all the details on where things go and who gets what within the program. Of course, if you scroll down, you get the program benefits. It tells people what's going on in the program, how you can implement this program, and of course, who's eligible for this program. The next thing you need to know right here is a quick overview of the co-sponsored program. We have an FAQ, and then, of course, general questions that go along with that. And that's a quick speed overview of the eXp toolkit. And let's go for the address of that, toolkit.com/co-sponsor. Again, that's toolkit.com/co-sponsor. And that will get you access to the toolkit and give you information at your fingertips, all the details, including the FAQs telling you what's going on in the toolkit.
Russ,
So,
I'm gonna the eXp toolkit. We got to get eXp in the front there.
oh,
Can we
there,
add that
okay.
on? Yeah.
There you go. All right, cool.
That'll help you get there.
eXp. Okay, so there you go. eXptoolkit.com/co-sponsor. eXp toolkit. Good. Perfect. That works out brilliantly. So, man, there's some other questions going on around here. So what are some of the things that you're hearing that we need to make sure we work through?
Oh, some good little details. So I think you've already mentioned the time frame. We nearly have a full month until launch. That this is going to be your centralized resource. That toolkit, I can't emphasize enough how valuable that space will be. And those videos in particular, we know RevShare can be difficult to explain. I think that we have a really great couple resources there, making sure people understand fully what this is, what options there are, and what options there aren't. And how this whole sharing system works. So I highly encourage viewing of those videos. And then we've got all the questions that we could possibly think of and answers to provide to you. And this is going to be kind of our placeholder to bridge the gap between now and when we actually get this thing active. So you'll see a few changes by the time we get to May 1st about the actual instructions of what you do, when you sign up, where you sign up, etc. So this one is your resource until that time. The 2 pieces that you saw there too, there's downloadable FAQs as well as downloadable one-pager. So we have resources for you, and there's some social shareables there as well. So be sure to utilize that for however you guys are going forward with co-sponsor personally.
All right, perfect. So
back period, Russ, what do you think about that?
Yeah, so the next question is going to come up is like, well, wait a minute, but Kelton, I brought somebody in last week, and if I had known this, can I do co-sponsor with them now too? Because now I got to fight with somebody because they were going to choose between the 2 of us, and the other person's mad at me. Could we name them co-sponsor?
Yes, we can. So our plan for rollout is that we've got a specific date range here. It's going to be February 24th through April 30th. If you have joined in that time frame, you are eligible to name a co-sponsor. You get a one-time eligibility window through the end of May to come forth and name a co-sponsor. So we're going to have that reach back period to try to accommodate that situation.
And if somebody says, oh my gosh, how do I do that? What do we do with that?
How do we name them? So we've got we've got a couple different systems. We have a waiting period. No, we don't. We're live now. But as we're bringing them in, there's going to be access to the form. You first have to get through the join application. You need to make sure all parties are informed. So that's a really important key of these relationships. everyone should understand who's naming who and have that nice solid plan going in for all the features that Russ has mentioned here. The form is going to be available to name that co-sponsor. It'll check that you are not in the 7 levels above the sponsee. So that's key. If you are, it's going to create a double payment situation. So kind of look for that. If there's a chance you're going to get double paid, the system's not going to allow that connection to happen. That's key to we making this sustainable and scalable into the future to keep that healthy model. So that's going to check for those parameters, and then it's going to push you through and you will be paired and notified.
Okay, so when is that form going to be live if somebody wanted to put info in that?
May 1st. So
Okay.
everything goes live May 1st.
Got it. And if it's before May 1st, we've got a provision for that. You can send an email to exceptions@exprealty.net, and you can name the sponsor, the co-sponsor, and the sponsee, and make sure you CC everybody on that email so everybody knows what's going on, and send it in there before May 1, and we will hold a spot for you. So that person that's coming in now and you're saying, Kelton, I need to bring this person in now. I don't want to make them wait 30 days because they got to do a listing on Monday. Then what you're going to do is you're going to have them join, name the sponsor just like they would normally, and then email into the exceptions@exprealty.net, naming the sponsor, co-sponsor, and sponsee, and then we will hold a slot. And after May 1, they will start over the next week or two after May 1, they'll be inputting those and getting them legit. So you can reserve a spot for somebody now. Don't make them wait. If they need to come now, we want to make sure we don't hold them off and potentially lose them, so they can come in now.
And key feature of that, our sponsees are driving this. We want to make sure everybody is aware of the situation. And since they are the ones instigating the change, they are the people that have to fill out that form. So we'll have a communication process with that process that Russ just mentioned to make sure that those sponsees are able to push that form through. So we've got all of our I's dotted and T's crossed.
All right, so there you go. That is co-sponsored being done eXp way. I'm already calling it co-sponsor 2.0, even though it's our first one. It's still better than everything else I've seen out there, so I'm just going to keep calling it 2.0. So with that, you've got the FAQ. Again, the toolkit. Remember, exptoolkit.com/co-sponsor, and that will get you to the toolkit. Go in there, dig around, plenty of information in there and details in there. Kelton, thank you for everything you do for this company. You are an amazing person, an amazing soul. It's a pleasure working with you, and thanks for being my partner on rolling out co-sponsor.
I'm loving it. Thanks, Russ.
All right, there you go, co-sponsor. Take it back to Tony.
Wow. I'm still shaking. Can you see my hands? I'm so excited about the future of eXp with this new program that we rolled out. But coming up next, we have none other than Mr. Brian Ellington, our Chief Learning Officer. He's here. And you know why he came. You know what he's here to do. He's here to drop some Brian bombs all over the place. So have your notepads ready. He's going to be sharing with us some incredible information. Brian Ellington, you're up, brother.
Thank you. All right. Hey, Darren Hardy said, to achieve what you have not, you must become what you are not. You have to grow into your goals. So if you're here and want to get here, but you're not quite sure how to do that, well, the university can help. On Monday, we have Linnea Carver. She's going to be coming on talking about how to scale with clarity, personalize client experiences, and build a sustainable business. And that's part of Level Up every Monday. So check that one out. Also, next week on Thursday, we have our friend Brandon Brittingham with Elevate Expand Coaching is going to be talking about the investing side of your real estate business, how you work with investors, how you become an investor. That's part of the ongoing Expand Investing. If you're not part of that, go to expelevatecoaching.com, and check out Expand Investing. It's a great program, really helping a lot of agents build wealth for themselves. And then, of course, we have Big Agent Meeting next Friday. Stay tuned for that one. And then the Lab podcast, we're dropping a new one with Jimmy Nelson, our friend, talking about attraction and all things, how to blend faith, family, and mentorship into your practice to help you build a great revenue share org.
Wow. Thank you so much, Brian. And last, but certainly not least, Brian's coming back and he's bringing a friend. And that friend's name is, somebody you may have heard of named Renee Rodriguez. He's here. They're going to change the game and teach us how to win with clients. Brian and Renee, come on up, brothers. Come on up. What you got?
Hey, thank you, guys. All right, Renee, thanks for being here, man. We're so excited to have you. Now, listen, I got to meet you through Leo, and I'm a bit of a hermit. And so I didn't realize at first who you were in terms of like how much impact you've had in not just the real estate industry, but a lot of different industries as well, until I started telling, my wife and then a few other folks that I knew that I had met you, and they were like, "Oh my God, he's transformed my life." And so I'm really excited to be having you here and also be working with you on Amplify eXp as well. For those of you who may not know Renee, would you mind giving maybe a brief introduction?
Sure. And I've said this to you 100 times, the feeling is mutual. I mean, you are an icon in this industry, and you've created some of the things that I've used and followed and learned from. So the relationship's always been a fun one. And especially here at eXp with the vision that all of you have has been great. My name is Renee Rodriguez, and my background is in behavioral neuroscience. And if you want to learn more about me, I think you can follow me right here on Instagram and my website. You can learn all sorts of things. I did write a book on the neuroscience of influence and giving people a methodology to understand the gaps between our relationships and what happens in the brain when we don't fill the gaps. For example, like a moment like that, where I pause in the middle of a talk, it sends our brain into a frenzy. And so these questions that I always ask are, why is it that we jump to conclusions so quickly? Why is it that an unanswered text can send us into a frenzy of insecurity? Why is it that a rumor can spread faster than an official communication from a company? And it all happens in the foundations of the brain. And when we learn to answer those questions, you can start realizing the amount of missing information there are between people in the sales process and everything. And when we realize what the brain does in those moments, which is fill those gaps to construct their understanding of the world, in essence, constructing the reality, we start realizing the importance of being good communicators so that people don't fill in the gaps, that people don't make the negative and miss assumptions around who we are. And so I've been teaching leaders how to do that for a long time. I've also done sales training at all levels. And because I think when you look at the psychology and the neuroscience of decision-making, of resistance to new ideas, of presentation skills, sales process, all of it goes back to the same exact science. And that's one of the things I'm most excited about sharing with you all.
Yeah, it's funny because I've often said, listen, eXp University builds amazing training, right? We go out, we study the businesses of top agents of whatever given topic, and then we go model what they collectively are doing, right?
Right.
But what I've always said is, as an agent, there's nothing that I'm going to teach you that if you went and made 200 phone calls or knocked 200 doors, you wouldn't catch on to really quickly yourself, right?
Yeah.
So then the question is, well, why don't people do that? And I think the hardest step is not anything other than the 6 inches between your ears, getting that into motion. Your experience, you've had a lot of it. What is it that holds us back, and how do we get past that?
Well, over 50 years ago, this group called the Behavioral Press Research, Behavioral Scientific Behavioral Press Institute, I believe it's called BHRP. Yeah, Behavioral Press. And they were asked, as a group of psychologists, asked to study this whole phenomenon as to why, how do they improve and use psychology to help the sales process? And so they started looking at presentation skills and closing and communications, all the things that we think really comes to sales. But when they looked at it, they said, well, there's really 4 phases. And one of the first phases is the approach. How do you approach? How do you inform? How do you present? And then how do you create closure to that? And they said, well, if they don't make the approach, none of the other skills matter, because then I have nobody to present to. So they decided to put 100% of their energy in this concept called sales call reluctance. And what they discovered was fascinating. These are a bunch of really boring psychologists that discovered there are 16 types of reasons of why we are afraid to make a sales call. But it comes to understanding what we call the big M, which would be your motivation in life. And now there's motivations that, the raw motivation, I'm not referring to that. You have this emotional and mental and physical energy moving towards your big G. So you have your M and your G. And if I move all my motivational energy towards my goal, and the goal in this sense is to prospect, and there's a perfect tube, right, of this energy going to this, the outcome of that should be earning what you're worth. So we're moving from this motivational energy to our goal. The outcome of that would be to earning what we're worth. Now, if you're not earning what you're worth, meaning you're not making the money you make, they look at it as a very simple equation that first we have to check, is the motivational energy there? And then we say, okay, so let's say somebody's going through a financial crisis at home. Well, it takes emotional, mental, and physical energy to deal with that. Or maybe there's a divorce at home. Maybe somebody got cancer. Maybe a kid is sick. Maybe they're remodeling their home and their whole home is in upheaval. That takes some of the fuel to move towards goals because you have this what we call goal diffusion, or this motivational energy is dispersed in other ways, and so you don't get as much there. So that's the first step, is the motivation there. Now, a lot of times when I see people with low motivation, I ask, who are they married to? And I had one situation, this gentleman just didn't have any motivation. Well, who's his wife? The number one salesperson. Well, she's making $1 million a year, so he's just there. There's not real need to do it, right? And there's not much motivation to do that. And so what they found is that if you lack the motivation, then you can't really be reluctant, because how can you be reluctant to do something you don't want to do in the first place? So we solved that problem first. And then secondly, now, if we go to the goal, if you have too many goals and these arrows coming out, then all that motivational energy is dispersed and diluted, and you're not really doing anything. They call it goal diffusion. And so here I'm motivated, but I'm doing 20 different things. Well, then those 20 different things aren't getting the energy they deserve. And so, but what they found were in between the motivation and goals, there's leaks. And, the example I give, if we were to be in a race and we were to have a glass of water the same size, and I give you a straw and me a straw, but then I take your straw and I go like this, and I pound it on the table, and I create that little line. We've all been there. We try to open it up and it creates that slit, and we're trying to consume the water, but we're also consuming air, and you're only consuming about 30% of the water because the rest of it's just air. Now you putting the same amount of effort in, getting a yield that's much higher. You're trying and trying and trying and getting very little. I'm trying and very normal and getting 3-4 times the amount that you are. Now, what's frustrating is a lot of times you watch people that are working really hard, not achieving many results. And while somebody else seems like they're on autopilot, just generating all this stuff. Well, what's happening is they have less leaks in the straw. And so some of those leaks are things like telephobia. They think the phone weighs 300 pounds, or they think the phone looks like a gun. They're going to put that phone to my head. Why would I shoot myself in the head? But there's a lot of fear around that phone selling. There's what we call emotionally unemancipated, which means they have a fear of presenting to people or selling to people that are of more power, influence, or education that they do. Some people have referral aversion, right? Where they go, I don't want to ruin an existing relationship by asking for more business. Some people have what we call friend shield, where they put a shield around their friends. They don't sell their friends. Well, if I have friend shield, but I have no yielder, which would be I don't want to be perceived as pushy or modest, I might approach you and I could build a great relationship and I close you, but then we become friends. Now I won't ever sell you again because I put it in shield around you. So there's 16 different types, but those are the real scientific reasons behind those.
That's amazing. And there's so much there to unpack. I want to go back to the motivation thing. James Clear in Atomic Habits, he talked about the habit formation cycle, right? Craving, response, reward, right? That's how habits are formed. And what I've found is habits in real estate, the reward doesn't come for 100 days at least. Meaning if I've met a ready, willing, and able seller or buyer today, probably not going to close for 100 days, unless it's a cash buyer, but for the most part, that's rare, right? And so when we are trying to form the habit of prospecting, lead generating, whatever, and that reward's not coming today when I'm doing those calls, there's a huge disconnect there. And that's one of the challenges. You talked about motivation. You ask most real estate agents, why are you doing this? And they'll if you press hard enough, they'll give you a great answer. Loved ones, kiddos, all those great touchy-feely kind of emotional things. And yet connecting that to the daily habits of success as a motivation. Any advice that in terms of how you do that? How do you take this ethereal motivation and then channel that into a daily activity, especially one that, a lot of people are a little, you use the word reluctant to do. I'd say reluctant to being kind.
I think, it makes so much logical sense to be able to do that. I mean, can't you just realize that this is for your kids?
Yeah.
Well, it's very akin to this motivational piece around change or die. What if that was the motivation that you had? What if you literally, if you don't change, you will die? Let's just raise the motivation level. And what they found was that wasn't effective either. And so there's a study that was done in a book called Change or Die. And IBM every year has what they call the Global Innovator Outlook Conference. And in that conference, they bring in the biggest leaders from across the world. And this particular year, the topic was The topic was healthcare, and at the time it was $1.8 trillion issue, which made up about, I think, 20% or 13% of the 19% of the GDP, and that almost $2 trillion were of healthcare budget was consumed by 5 behavioral issues: smoking, drinking, eating, not enough exercise, and too much stress. So things that we knew very clearly. And so they said, well, maybe we need to up the motivation. Let's just say, if you don't change, you'll die. So they use an opportunity where somebody just had an angioplasty, which is, where they're the precursor to heart disease. There's buildup of plaque in the arteries, and they crack open the chest cavity, pull them over. Now, by the way, this is all reversible through diet and exercise, and the procedure only lessens the pain. And so they said, let's wait till right after their surgery, they're on the recovery bed, and let's hit them in that moment. John, if you don't change, you'll die. So the CEO of Johns Hopkins University sharing this study. And what they found is that of that, 9 out of 10 were back within 2 years for a second procedure. Wow. So that change or die didn't work. And what they found was, when things are that drastic, we have to go into denial around that. We are in denial of the morbidness of life. If we didn't, we wouldn't be able to survive. And we realize how easily we could just die. Yeah. And so we go into this denial. And it felt so disconnected. That proximity of that consequence was so far removed, right? It's like somebody who smokes, they know they're not supposed to smoke, but they're going to smoke anyway. We know we're not supposed to eat, cheeseburgers and fries, but yet that fry is not going to kill us because the consequence is so far removed. But if you were to lace that next burger or that next cigarette with cyanide, you wouldn't smoke it because you would just shorten that cycle or that proximity of the consequence. Because it's much more real at that point, which, by the way, is some of the challenge of leadership. It's also some of the challenge of salespeople. It's easy to say, oh, I don't need to invest right now, but I regret that in 20 years. I don't need to buy now. I want to wait the market out. Well, you probably regret that in 5 years when the prices are way more expensive. So we can learn to bridge that and shorten that proximity of consequence. But the University of Omaha, this guy by the name of Dr. Dean Ornish, saw this study and said there's a better way. And there's a spiritual, psychological, emotional, all these other components that go involved. And they took the same patients, the same kind of procedure. And instead of saying you're going to change or die, they walked in, the daughter would walk in with her grandchildren and saying, Dad, you really scared us. Dad would respond saying, honey, I love you. I'm strong. I'm going to be just fine. Well, Dad, you remember when I got married? Of course, honey, it was one of the greatest days of my life. Well, I remember how nervous I was, Dad. And I remember wasn't sure if I was doing the right thing. And then I looked over and I saw you and you winked at me and you smiled. And in that moment, I knew everything was okay. Wow, honey, gosh, you're going to make me cry because you know that I love you. Well, Dad, I'm not sharing that to make you cry. I'm sharing that because if you don't change how you eat and exercise, you're not going to see your grandchildren get married. And that study produced that 70% were not back after 3 years because it was much deeper connection around the fear of loss of something valuable. And that was the key. And so I think when it comes to motivation, it comes to us being able to change our behaviors, we do have to self-reflect and we have to look about what will I lose? What valuable things will I lose if I don't do this? And unfortunately, too many of us wait for that to be face in front of us. The divorce about to happen on our deathbed. The conversations that could have been avoided because we've been procrastinating those difficult looks inside before it's too late to realize the changes we need to make. So there's a lot of different approaches to this one, but we have to be able to figure out what is it that's important to us and what was the fear of that loss? What would that look like?
Yeah. Yeah. You talked about too, the I forget what you called it, but the friend bubble, that I don't want to annoy the people, the friend shield. And I can tell you, man, I've done trainings where we do live calling in the training, right? Always follow the do not call TCPA rules, please. It's not paranoia if they're out to get you, and they really are out to get you. But I've had it happen multiple times where people literally start breaking down crying. And I go talk to them, what's wrong? Well, I can't do this. I can't call my friends. I'm just going to annoy them. They're going to think I'm sleazy and blah, blah, blah. How do you overcome that? How do you get people to reframe their thinking around that friend shield?
Well, what you're talking about is actually role rejection, and that's another type of self-call reluctance where we have a shame about being associated to the self-promotional world. And so role rejection is one of the most difficult ones. The most expensive is yield, or somebody who's wanting to be seen as pushy or modest. But role rejection is a tough one because we don't see ourselves. So we change our titles. I'm not a salesperson. I'm a real estate professional. I'm a real estate consultant, right? And we're not in sales. And so they disassociate themselves to all the behaviors that do that. And if a salesperson had certain requirements, a job description, and you don't want to associate to that salesperson role, then you won't associate to the requirements either. And so we have to shift that. And every good salesperson has a story of transformation, that moment where they realized that they were and they found pride in it. I'll give you an example. One of my good friends, Scott Hardy, who was one of the greatest salespeople I've ever met. And he was a financial advisor for 24 years. And he was coming home one day with his friends. He went over to dinner at his friend's house. And his father had just been diagnosed with this illness that was going to be very, very difficult. Now, Scott sold long-term healthcare insurance. And they were trying to figure out at the table what they were going to do. And he goes, the moment that conversation came up, he goes, Scott said, my heart sunk to the floor because I knew exactly what was going to happen next. And sure enough, the family, the friend goes, wait, guys, mom, dad, Scott sells an insurance that covers this. Like, we have a solution. Scott, tell him what you do. And of course, like a record scratching, the father looks at Scott and says, Scott, what do you got? And he had to tell him the most difficult truth, which was, I can't help you because the policy would have had to have been in place prior to diagnosis. He goes, that wasn't even the hard part. The hard part was what the father said next. And he looked at him and he said, so were you waiting for something like this to happen before you told me about it? And it was like a gut punch to the soul, saying, who am I to not believe in my product enough to tell the people that I care about most that I could have actually been there? I was so concerned with being seen as pushy or immodest and worried about who I was that I missed the opportunity to actually help somebody. And isn't that why I sell this anyways, to help people? Yeah. And it was in that moment that he made a decision, said, if I don't believe in my product enough to tell my closest ones and to sell them on this, then I'm in the wrong business. And so what that means to an agent is, an agent, we know that the American dream has always been home ownership. We know that the fastest vehicle to wealth is in real estate. It's not in a wage or a salary. And if you know that a homeowner has an average net worth of $393,000 compared to the net worth of a renter of being just $10,000, there's a 44-time increase in doing that. Then we have an obligation to share this with as many people as possible to help them get into the game of net worth. And so those reframing moments, so we realize why it is that we do what we do and get ourselves to be proud and maybe give this profession a new name based on the integrity and the ethics by which we approach it. That's the opportunity, but we have to be able to buy into who we are and embrace it, for sure.
Yeah, very well said. Very well said. What's interesting is you look at the stats of our industry and they tell you everything you need to know. 75% fail out in the first 2 years. Some say 71, some say 80. Let's just all agree it's somewhere in that range. Fail out in the first 2 years. Why? Because they weren't professionals. They weren't committed. Yeah. That's one thing, right? So the people that you're not interacting with, you're more than likely pushing them into the arms of those agents who are not going to be there for them. The other thing too is you give a crap about them. Take stock of that. You give a crap about them. Those other agents don't. Yeah. Which means you may not be the best agent in your market yet, but you are somebody who cares. And somebody who cares, I will put money on any day of the week versus somebody who's just there for the paycheck.
Yes.
Right? And it's interesting too. So I talk to agents a lot about theory of mind, orders of intentionality, where, I know what I'm thinking. That's the first order of intentionality. I think you think this. That's a second order. I think you think, I think this. That's a third order. Most of us as human beings can track up to about 5 or 6 orders of intentionality scaling up, right? And I ask the question, which one of these can we get wrong? And the answer is all of them, including number one, what I think I'm thinking, right? That's why psychologists and psychologists get so much money. But what's interesting is you couple that with this idea of the negativity bias, which we as humans tend to focus more on negative than on positives. And so we not only are making assumptions about what other people are thinking, but then those assumptions tend to be more negative in nature. And I wish I had some, great psychology degree or studied neuroscience as much as you do to learn how to turn that off, reframe it. Any advice for us about how to turn off the negative voices inside our heads when it comes to assuming what other people are going to think about us ahead of time?
Well, I think what you're doing is right. We have to educate ourselves why we think that way in the first place. It's not because we're negative people. It's because it's a survival mechanism.
That's
And those who tend to think more negatively tend to survive. If you are walking in the woods and you hear a branch break and you get curious, go, what little critter could that be? The chances of you dying go higher. It's just higher. And so there's a survival rate that's higher to those that tend to assume the negative when there's a space of information. And that's what we were talking about. When I don't know the information, it is safer for me to assume the negative, to be prepared for that, versus to always assume the positive. Now, even optimists have negativity bias, by the way. So this isn't about being an optimist or a pessimist. This is much deeper than that. And so when, a lot of times we fear the unknown than the uncomfortable truth. Some people would rather be in the uncomfortable truth of being broke than engage in the unknown of what happens if I pick up the phone call. And the reason that's the case is because the unknown leaves this massive gap to fill with that assumption. And so then we got to ask ourselves, what are we filling these gaps of these unknowns with, and what sources do we have? And I was working with somebody yesterday, and he was talking about that right now, about 99.999%, and this is research-based, of the way we understand and interpret the world is driven by an unconscious and other than conscious process. And we have about 40 to 60,000, some places say 70,000 thoughts a day. And to start making sense of those thoughts, we daydream to put them together into narratives and stories to just make sense of all of these things. And so if we have all of these thoughts and we look at the visual piece, about 85% of our visual understanding of all the sensory input, 85% comes through our eyes. To create those thoughts that then become the narratives that construct the reality that drive the unconscious processes. Well, then what his case was is saying, well, maybe we need to surround ourselves with things that are driving those unconscious processes. What podcasts are you consuming? Who do you spend your time with? What is in your visual field? Like he pointed out in my office, he goes, there's nothing in here that tells you where you're going, Renee. This is all execution. You have camera equipment and whiteboards and everything, but where are you headed? Where's your vision? I'm like, wow, what a concept. And so I'm going to be reorganizing my office to have the visual stimulus that's constantly reminding me where I'm going. And as much as I love tech is out of sight, out of mind. There's nothing better than putting a sheet of paper on the wall that says you're broke. If that's true, then I better change that piece through the behaviors. If I'm broke, oh my God, I better not go to happy hour tonight because I'm broke right now. Jim Rohn, you say, affirm the truth. If you're broke saying that you're rich, you're delusional. And if you say, well, affirmations, I'm rich and I'm wonderful. That's not what an affirmation is. That's delusion. Affirmation is I engage in the activities that drive more results and opportunities. I make 100 phone calls a day. Those are action-based affirmations that drive the behaviors that lead to the results that we want. And the more you surround yourself around that, you're training your reticular activating system, which determines your attention and focus, to start seeing opportunity versus start seeing the lack thereof. Yeah. And so lots that you can do there.
Yeah. Reminds me of the Covey model of be, do, have, right? Not have, do, be. So Renee, I've taken this conversation way fast, way high level. But you're going to be doing, actually, I don't know how we convinced you. I think maybe Leo's charming or maybe I might have a little bit, but we got you to do a session coming up April 8th. It's going to be at 1 p.m. Central, Amplify Your Sales. I want to give everybody a sense of what they're going to get from that call.
Yeah. So my background is in behavioral neuroscience, but I also have a strong sales background and do a lot of sales training. And this is around how do we look at the neuroscience behind modern selling in this modern world? How do we take the fundamental pieces and modernize them so in an approach that we can actually engage in helping more people achieve that dream of home ownership and the wealth they deserve to have? And so we're going to be going through some basic fundamentals and then putting some cool innovations on top of that make it more fun and exciting. It's going to be intriguing. And I promise you, you'll get a different view of what selling is. One that comes from an ethical perspective that truly does help people in a way that doesn't mean you have to be pushy. Maybe care enough to be unreasonable, but not pushy. And so we're gonna learn a lot of those different elements. It's going to be very tactical as well as understanding and philosophical, driven by science, but you're going to be walking away with some very tangible items that you can do, that you can work on.
Yeah, so that's April 8th at 1 p.m. Central. Amplify Your Sales. and we'll get the registration link for you guys here. Also, too, if you can't wait till then, and you shouldn't, go check out Amplify eXp. So Renee was kind enough to do a program with us. He normally does his Amplify mentorship program, which is 2 calls per month. Because of his relationship with eXp, he expanded that to 2 additional calls specifically for eXp. So we've got 4 calls per month as part of that program. It's $97 a month, which is ridiculously cheap. Thank you for severely
Normally
discounting.
$297.
Yeah. Thank you for doing
For half
that.
the stuff. Yeah.
I need to go back into sales. I am a heck of a negotiator, apparently, or you're just a really nice guy.
It's your charm, Brian. It's your charm.
Yeah, that's right. I'll tell my wife.
No,
I said that.
I believe in what eXp is doing. Your leadership team has become very dear to me. Leo's been a friend for over 15 years. Some of my favorite people in the industry are part of eXp. I love the model. I love the innovation. I love where you're going. And to me, I'd be stupid to not want to be a part of that in some way, shape, or form. And I believe that other people, once they know that story, will feel the same way. And anything I can do to help contribute to that feeling of FOMO for those that aren't a part of this wonderful train that's going in a great direction, I'm all for it.
Yeah. And if you're on the fence, if you're not sure, the first month's on us. Go sign up, expelevatecoaching.com. Don't like it, cancel.
Free first month. That's 4 coaching sessions free.
Yeah, and just amazing content. Also, amazing guests each month, bringing on people like Neil Ford and others who are just masters of their craft, and all around the topic of helping you build your sales and build your influence as a sales professional. Renee, as always, man, thank you so much. Looking forward to April 8th. And for those of you who want to check it out sooner, expelevatecoaching.com. Thank you, buddy.
Thank you, sir. See you all there.
All right, man. Happy Friday.
Wow. Anybody else smoking? Like, you should be smoking from your ears from today's big agent meeting. I know I am. I can't wait to get off of this thing and go start helping some agents grow and build their business. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Renee. Thank you, Brian. It's been absolutely incredible. Listen, if you enjoyed today's big agent meeting, I know you did, but we want to hear from you. Again, we do these meetings for you. These big agent meetings are for you to help you grow your business, but we need to hear from you. What do you get the most out of? What do you appreciate? How can we be better? We want to hear all that stuff. So if you do a favor, scan this QR code, or you can click that link that's in there. You can give us some feedback. Tell us how we can be even better, even more effective for you on these big agent meetings, because we would absolutely love to hear it. We'd love to hear from you. And until next time, y'all be incredible, be amazing, and make it a great, great day. Take care.